Well, hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's stream is gonna be basically co-hosted by Mash Gaming, KAM, and myself. Now, Captain Bayi and Chunky will try to make, but they are quite wrapped up. A couple of things before we really get into the nitty-gritty bits about the stream is I will not necessarily be able to read every chat. So I will try to read as many chats, but I will not be able to necessarily reply to all of the chats, because obviously it's going to be discussion format, and we want to try and avoid interrupting each other as much as possible. Now, that being said, hopefully we get a very productive discussion. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. On the screen currently you can see MCOC State of the Game discussion document that was effectively composed by Mash Gaming after he had a similar type of discussion with German YouTubers, and all of this feedback is going to get forwarded to KAM. So all that being said, thank you very much to everybody for joining me on this stream, and I have left a link to KAM's link is missing because he was lazy. I have left a link to Mash Gaming's stream in the video description if you want to check out his channel as well. But yeah, I think we can get started, right, guys?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Last thing, can you guys hear Mash and KAM well?
Hello.
Hello, guys. I hope everybody can hear us good.
Yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everybody can hear as well.
And the last thing that I need to do is... Whoa.
Yes. I hope everybody also can hear KAM and KT on my side pretty good.
Wonderful. So we are here and we are ready to go.
Okay. I also have on my side the document open, and I tried just before the word, like to start off, on my channel in the description there is a link to the document, so you can, if you want, to open it up and read along while we have the conversation. Yeah. First of all, I tried to just get the current state of the different game modes, a little bit of summary of the external influences, and then like what the perspectives are, like what the frustration points are, and then address which potential implementations in the game could resolve certain frustration points and everything. I started with Alliance War. I think everybody in the channel or in the chat and so on knows the current state of it. We're fighting against the different alliance, and yeah, there is season rewards. You have a little bit of pressure due to potion use. You want to not let your alliance hang and everything, and also additionally, I addressed the step limitation that it's only refilling 1 energy per hour. That also can, for organization reasons, put pressure on the alliance. And yeah, first of all, I wanted, before we go into my perspectives, what I summarized, I want to hear from your side, KT and KAM. What's your thoughts on the current Alliance War situation?
I'll let KAM go first.
Yeah, thank you. So I just recently stepped down from my old alliance, where we used to basically do like Alliance War pushes for Masters and for like top 3 and stuff like that. So, and they chose to go down that route a couple of consecutive seasons, and then the whole competitive aspect of it really wasn't sustainable for me. So Alliance War is right now where I'm at. We only care about like basically 100%ing the map, and it's like in certain aspects it's a lot more manageable. It's a lot less stressful, because like if I know I die, I don't necessarily feel bad about 29 other people being let down. I feel bad about 29 other people being let down if I like happen to eye them out on a path, but that doesn't necessarily happen. So I think Alliance Wars right now, where I'm at right now, with the rewards I'm getting, in the current alliance I'm in, but like the platinum rewards we're getting, I'm happier with the rewards because they're better suited to my progression. Like otherwise, in masters, I wouldn't be getting tier 2 alpha and stuff like that. And with like having to log in and the stresses of alliance wars and stuff like that, like I don't feel nearly as stressed. Like we used to worry about like invulnerability boosts and like power start 1 boosts every night, whether or not they're going to be put in store or not, or what kind of like champion boost you're going to use, or are you going to have to spend units to get those champion boosts. So, and I'm not a spender in the game, so all of that kind of culminated in the fact that it just wasn't sustainable for me personally. So I'm just in a better place with Alliance Wars right now. Still sucks though with defense tactics.
Right, for me personally.
Sorry, Katie, one question. So one of the big issues from your side was, for example, the randomized boost availability.
Yeah, I mean, that was stressful. That was not like, it wasn't keeping me from doing my fights. It was keeping me from soloing my fights.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Katie. Yeah.
Yeah. Just quickly on the Alliance War boost availability, realistically only has become issue for me personally trying to play the game as kind of like serious as I did within the flow. Because flow, for instance, I was one of the people who had to go and solo every mojo boss that I saw. Without special 1 boost, that fight is improbable, especially on the old type of flow. Because the point was you just don't get to level 2 quickly enough, and if you don't get level 2, you just die. And therefore, even if you have the perfect counter, for instance using magic, you were unable, unlike KAM said, not even do the fight. Like, you were not able even to do the fight, let alone solo it. And that boost made such a big difference, because getting a single mana power was still probable by the time he gets to his level 3 or 2 ideally and something. But without it, it was impossible. So for instance, for this Alliance War season, because I consistently had to go and take out every mojo, every single one of my special 1-star boosts was kind of like touch and go. I actually used kind of my last special 1 boost in the last war that I had with NY, like for the last mojo boss. But outside of that, my personal feelings towards Alliance War is the fact that the game mode itself is just stale and outdated. When the seasons got introduced, Alliance War got highly competitive. It was, and what Alliance War had was monopoly on high-end rewards. As in, like, tier 5 basics were unavailable completely anywhere else, and you could only acquire them by like offers and stuff like that. There was no tier 5 basic in AQ, and there was hardly any tier 5 basic in any other content in the game outside of Alliance War. And then Alliance War had a lot of meaning, it had a lot of competition, and many people had no choice but to be super active and take kind of like part in Alliance War to the best extent that they could. Now, whether that was a healthy thing for the game overall or wasn't, it was a great thing for Alliance War in the sense that many people looked at it as something more necessary and were encouraged to go and play it. Currently, the amount of energy, stress, resources that a competitive Alliance War requires is nowhere near worth taking that money, time, energy, or resources and either reinvesting it in your prestige, thus getting higher AQ rewards and getting your TFIB there, or just flat out buying the offers. Everything that you can win, even if you finish in top 20 in the world from a season of Alliance Wars, you can get in a single offer or maybe 2 offers for like $100 or so. But when you add in the cost of boosts, cost of potions, and that has been also one aspect that has been neglected by KAM, for instance, not even neglected in my personal opinion. The thing that they did with potions and boosts themselves, they made sure that you have kind of like better or more suitable potions and boosts available for Alliance War only for cash purposes. They have updated Glory Store 3 times in a row without decreasing the cost of Alliance Potion, and they didn't add the new Alliance Potion. So that only kind of like adds into what's the point, because Alliance War has a lot more cost associated than the reward can come out of it, even if you finish somewhere in top 20.
Yes. That's
I think... Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with it. because especially in Alliance War, I think there is a lot of pressure which players in general and alliances put on themselves, because it's more or less the thought that it's required to achieve a high rank. But taking a look at the rewards, they're not worth it. For example, we are playing in an alliance which is at around the top 30 on Alliance Quest, so prestige-wise and stuff like this. But in the same moment, for Alliance War, we don't really pressure each other in general, because we know that the rewards are not worth the frustration over it.
Yeah, and like with what Katie mentioned with Alliance Wars, used to having like exclusive rewards, used to having some of the best rewards in the game. That does there's no winning in that scenario. You either have an Alliance Ward that has a monopoly on high-end rewards, and it basically kind of forces people to play. And then, we've all had people who basically burnt out because they were feeling forced to play Alliance Wars. And I feel people getting burnt out from that aspect kind of burns them off from the game as well, rather than just from Alliance play. I feel it feels a lot worse to have a game mode where you're forced to participate, and if you choose not to participate, you're just losing out on just super meaningful rewards. And then another aspect that he brought up was the selling of the new potions and the new boosts, which I agree with. Like it's crazy. Like it feels really bad that these potions and boosts are only available for units, but at the same time, it is a form of selling convenience, and selling convenience, unfortunately, is like one of the main monetization methods that free to play games use, which sucks, but it's a business.
Yes.
A quick kind of ad overall what Alliance War that I have been, I think, preaching for like last 3 months is, considering how much history and divide there is about Alliance War in general. Now, I'm not saying the whole game mode should necessarily be scrapped or anything like that, but I think KAM, at this point, we're reaching season, 18, 19, something like that, right? We're going to be in 20s soon.
They're all the same by now.
And they're all the same. There's nothing fresh, there's nothing new. And when Alliance War Seasons came out, initially the simple fact that it was something new got a lot more people excited. Now, you might, I don't know, Die Hard movies, for instance, right? You make the first one, it's awesome. Second one must be good at least as well, so you have a certain level of expectations. By fifth one, you refuse to accept it as a Die Hard movie. Similar to kind of like with Alliance Wars, because there's not really anything changing significantly. I know KAM tried with their Alliance War modifiers, which made the thing considerably worse and less enjoyable. But what I'm trying to say is, maybe it's time just to approach different format for Alliance Wars, because to me, KAM as a company seems to be afraid of trying out new and interesting things. How about take a pause, take a pin in the whole season thing, but organize a tournament? Or do something else with Alliance War? Because everybody's stuck in the dogma in the game that, for instance, your Alliance War and the Alliance Quest team has to be 3 people. Does it? It only is assumed so because KAM made it so that you can have 3 champion slots. Your questing team is 5 people questing team, and that's how you build your synergy teams around. Is it necessarily always be all end all just because that is how it has been up until now? And the same with Alliance Wars. Like, do we need to just blindly carry on doing what we have been doing, even if people are bored from it? I do understand that it is risky to change things up, but as kind of like testing purpose thing, just to see community's reaction to it. Because if KAM tried out a tournament, nobody would slate them for it. Whether it succeeded or whether it's failed, the whole idea that they're trying to keep the game refreshing, in my personal opinion, would be appreciated by the community.
Yes, actually, you say the point there, which I was already considering like around 2 years ago, about the team size with 5 or 3 team members or something like this. And I was thinking it actually would be a cool mechanics if there is, for example, a certain story mode where you can put, let's say, a primary team in there, and then you can choose, let's say, like 3 secondary team members, which you're not able to use in the fight, but their synergies are activated.
Yeah, exactly. Or there is nothing in making a really complex variant where you're allowed 7 team members, where either some parts are longer or the requirements are higher or whatever. Make it 7 for one
Or
specific
why
piece
do
of
we
content.
even need an alliance wars that's 30 versus 30? That's like, I feel that aspect of it. Also, like the whole aspect of putting pressure on 29 other people, on 20, like feeling the guilt from 29 other people on you. Why do we need that 30 versus 30? Like, why not do it 10v10? Why not do it, smaller scale?
I actually, I think Professor Skill last time made the suggestion in the German conversation was like, in general, it would be cool, for example, also on Alliance Quest, and it's principle the same on Alliance War, that you just can say, there is just per battle group just 9 people. That means 3 people per Alliance War or Alliance Quest can take more or less a day off. You know it, everybody knows it. Like, you want to go on vacation for 1 week, and then it's like, oh, but I need to check Alliance Quest, or I need to leave the Alliance for this week, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's even worse with Alliance Quest, because there's no off week with Alliance Quest. You basically do it every week. You do the same thing every week, and like especially with map 6 and map 7 and the higher maps, the demand for your time is so significant. We'll get into that for sure, but yeah, there has to be like a life game balance.
On map 7, and this is going to be again extremely subjective, I generally don't relate to people who say it takes that much time. And so once you have gotten to the rhythm, legitimately, I have to log in the game like about 3 times as much, maybe 4. And
yes, I agree on map 7 on this. I have the same situation. I heard from a lot of people that map 6 takes a lot of time because of all the node restrictions to each other. But map 7 in general, if it's organized properly and from an alliance which is playing purely map 7, I expect that they are organizing it properly. But there I really like, as me, for example, before I go to bed, I clear section 1. I get up before I drive to work, clear section 2. After work, I clear section 3. And on the evening, before I go to bed again, I clear section 1 again. So it's like 3 times login to clear the map.
For me, it's quite similar as well.
It's a little more difficult for people in the Americas, though. It's like for us, you basically gotta be done with your section 2 before going to bed, because there's not that much time after you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it I think map 7 for myself, I don't have a problem with it, but I have heard enough people saying that it significantly impacts their lives, their like personal lives, their work lives. But
honestly, I think
somebody is late, then it impacts my life.
Yeah, honestly, I think this would be resolved so easily, in my opinion, because currently the Alliance Quest time period is 5 times 24 hours. That means if you are starting one map late, one day in the week, the last day will be shorter.
Yeah.
If you just add an additional 12 hours to this cycle in which you're able to do the 5 days of Alliance Quest, every time zone can adjust when they start properly and are flexible to do it as they wish.
It's a lot of alliances are not just one time zone, though.
Yes, I'm in an alliance where most of the people are from the US.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, like the 12-hour addition, 12-hour window, I think is definitely quite a decent solution overall. But obviously, I don't understand why KAM is so opposed into putting timers into like 45 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that. It's...
I for potential improvements on Alliance Quest, I have energy timer being reduced to 30 to 45 minutes.
Or
Will
if they
provide
don't
more
want to reduce
flexibility
the
for
timers per se,
the
they can let us start with 5 energy and have maximum of 7 energy or something like that.
My stance is more towards like, let us start with 5, have 8 energy, because before you have kids, you gotta have 8 hours of sleep. So, but yeah, I think I'm more towards that. Like, I know that the shorter energy timers are asked for quite often, but they do also keep telling us that whatever shorter energy timer you get is going to put more pressure on international members, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't think they're completely wrong either.
Honestly, I have to disagree, because how it can be more pressure if you have more flexibility.
Because people rush to finish as soon as possible, and if you're not about then and there, people are going to be waiting on you. And for instance, if you're in Asia countries, I remember being in Alliance with many of Asian members, they're not about for the first 5 or 6 hours of Alliance Quest. The time they're not about is all more than the time I have left in my day being in UK. So if there's somebody in Asia that's, for instance, blocking me, and he cannot do anything till people get up. That makes sense. I hope it does.
Okay. Yeah, maybe because I also see it in the chat at the moment, people are saying they prefer the increase of the energy cap, because also it's a general thing. It seems like that the 1 hour energy, how should I say, refresh, is giving the people in an alliance a reason to say like, okay, hey, I have no energy, leave me alone for 1 hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think personally I'd prefer starting with like 5 or 6 energy and having a cap of 7, 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quickly going back to Alliance Wars, though.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to their offense tactics. Now, basically, these are for characters who fit the same criteria as the employed defense tactic, but also when fighting characters who also have that same defense tactic. So, like, for example, if you're fighting a Mojo with a Magic, right, both control characters, you get some sort of boost. I think one of the most enjoyable Alliance War seasons was season 5, when we had like the female champion boost. I know a lot of people hated that season because that was the heyday of Blade and everybody was bleeding me. But during the same season, we had like Magic and Morningstar just slaying everyone because they had like 40% extra attack on every fight. I think that was a good season, because it gave us a reasonable reason to go ahead and use characters who maybe are not as powerful. But
yes, actually, this is a very good point. Also, it's like you said, it gives a reason to use certain champions and so on. And this is something what in general should be implemented in a positive way in the game.
Yeah, instead of being like punishment, like you have to use Guillotine 2099 and Crossbones. That's all you got.
I generally, personally, don't have as optimistic outlook on this whole new offensive tactic side, because in general, Alliance, what the best way to put it? I don't feel as if though Alliance War is the game mode that should be turned into experiment, because all of these new interactions is something that somebody has to discover, take a leap of faith, and go in and do it. It's not a story quest, it's not a variant where you can just randomly try things out and it has very little consequence. It's something that you go and try. If it doesn't work, it's going to cost people a lot of items, or at the worst, it's going to make your alliance lose war. Additionally, I don't think that Alliance War, it's good for Alliance War in general when you turn it back to being much more of a spreadsheet war. As in, like, all of these unique interactions that exist only in this little bubble, and none of it affect. And that's also a large reason why I dislike defensive tactics. because all of the matchups
Yeah,
there
they do
are
create a lot of
extremely
work for
unique to a
office.
point where
Yeah.
nothing else comes
Yeah.
close, from a point that things you are able to do in Alliance War, thanks to the 3-minute boost, for instance, are not the things you are able to do anywhere else in the game. And additionally, the matchups and the fights that you might be able to do anywhere else in the game, you're not able to do anymore in Alliance War because of defensive tactics. And now when you're throwing in the third customization option for Alliance War specifically that's not active anywhere else in the game, it just makes it feel a bit more of a, I don't know, perversion or parody of Marvel Concept of Champions. So in my mind, kind of like the more things interesting, these offensive bonuses, stuff like that, stuff like variants are a perfect place for them, stuff like monthly events, mono clubs, incursions, whatever you have, but not your day-to-day kind of like base game modes like Alliance War, Alliance Quest, and Story Quest, for instance.
Yes,
I think that would make it too monotonous, though. Like, not experimenting is gonna make it too monotonous. I think maybe trying to address that the root of the problem, trying to address why Alliance War is so damn expensive every single war, right? If you try to address that, if you forego some of your revenue from Alliance Wars as KAM, and open up some reasonable room for experimentation, I think that could be a more enjoyable experience.
I think that there it maybe actually would be a potential for let's say an additional game mode for their experimentation, because of one reasons. Because I see it here in the chat also, are a lot of these variations which KT just addressed are resulting in a lot of additional work to the officers.
Yeah.
And they are absolutely burned out, a lot of them, because they put so much work beside gaming into this. I was long time officer in previous alliances and stuff like this, and I don't want to do that anymore, because it's just so much effort to put in, and respect to all the people who put in this work, and bringing in more variations. It's just Marvel Contest of Champions is a really complex game. It's really, it's like you have so many champions, all the champions behave differently, then you have the nodes, then the nodes interact with their abilities, then you have a second like additional global buff which you can apply, and to keep the overview over everything is not an easy task. And to add more and more to it will just make it more complex and drive away the people which currently take over this workload.
Also,
one of
as
like
a,
the most go ahead, sorry.
I want to, or I'll be super, also as an additional negative to this expanded kind of narrative on Alliance War customization and experimentation, because effectively Alliance War, no matter what says, is not about fun. It's about winning and finding the most effective path. Therefore, the whole reason why these defensive modifiers have failed is because there's always one strategy that's more effective, or even if it's not the most effective strategy, there's always going to be one strategy that's perceived to be as more effective. As in, like, let's say if Kenobi uses one defensive modifier, then you get beat by Kenobi, and Kenobi is like the first place alliance, and it's like, oh, they must know what they're doing, and whatever that defensive tactic they pick, for instance, is going to kind of like go over, and pretty much everybody's going to start using it. Whether it is the hardest one or one of the hardest ones doesn't effectively matter, but there will never be a true variance of these defensive tactics so long as the choice is actually given to us about it. Because you're interested in winning, so you're interested in making the map as difficult as you possibly can for your opponents. Therefore, you're going to pick the most effective defensive tactic over and over and over and again, so long as you have a choice. And obviously that will also mean that you will only have the same offensive bonuses, and there's going to be very little experimentation left to you after like the initial period of time.
Yeah. The point about officer burnout though is definitely crazy. Like, especially I used to run map 7 lanes for my alliance. Like, I used to assign lanes and everything like that. So basically having to get on the game 3 p.m. my time every week at a different day during the week because Alliance Wars is an eight day timer. It was basically a huge burden on my life, and I think that's part of the reason officers like get burned out, because Alliance Wars is the same. You have to, in my time zone, you have to get on at 2 p.m. Who is available at 2 p.m., right?
To Alliance War, I can also share a story. I was an officer there, and I had a spreadsheet over all champions, over every alliance member with the rank, with the signature level. Then I had a spreadsheet with all the notes.
Yeah.
And try to make it to get the maximum variation with the highest like placement efficiency for every champion. And the spreadsheet, if you imagine, there is like so many champions, and I collected the top 20 or 40 champions of every player. Multiplied by 40, it's like 200, 300 champion, what you collected. And regularly updating and everything, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I used to have a similar spreadsheet where we basically had the rosters of everyone, and then we assigned I assigned defender values to everyone, like how many defender kills this champion is relatively going to get, and then ran it through like a simulator to come up with like a with the most efficient way of placing them, which is crazy, right? It's all for a game. And
yes,
what I am looking forward to is the future iterations of what KAM is working on with top champions and also battle group assignments. Now, battle group assignments I know is going to lead eventually to lane assignments. So basically, an officer can go in there and like hopefully let members know, this is your highlighted lane. You're gonna take this lane, and then it would eliminate the need for some spreadsheets. And then battle group assignments and top champions could lead to easier modification
Thoughts
of
on
suggested
Seaton and
defenders.
Katie's
Like you
boycott
go in
vids.
there, you set diversity to 50 in a battle group, and then you set the number of flow defenders to any number you want, and then you drag and drop champions from the members' top champion list to there, and then they log in the game, they see the recommended champs, and they just match the champs.
That would be amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's hopefully coming with the future iterations of this. That really cannot come fast enough.
Yeah. For me, I also this would also obviously require that the officer have more or less insight of the champion of the alliance members, which in my opinion shouldn't be too big of a deal. It's like to watch their profile of like, instead of the top 5 champions or 4 champions, you see the top 20 or 40 champions.
Yeah, that feature is coming sooner, right? That was included in the top champion feature.
I was not part of the podcast there.
It's basically like a top champion feature. It's
the KAM how should I say, presentations is like 3 o'clock in the morning at my place during the week. That's not something I can follow.
Yeah.
But what just as a simplified feature of this, which I, for example, would really appreciate, is that I just press a button and say, place the defenders identical as last time. Because it's just annoying that like I need to place them anywhere, then the officers need to go in, replace them again if they want to change something, and if, for example, my alliance, they're trying around regularly, but I don't know where they placed it, like this specific war. I would need to read it out again and then like have a screenshot somewhere and go through it again. If I just have a button placed like last time, it would make it easier for me and for the officers.
Yeah. Okay,
KT. Yeah.
Right. Well, first things foremost, I absolutely must acknowledge that top lad coming in, kill for fun, dropping out 2 bucks. So huge thank you to that. And a very, very brief answer what I think about KT's and Seaton's videos in regards of the whole B word discussions, or quite the discussions. The point is, in general, I disagree with the large amount said in there, and largely, especially the tone used in one of them. However, both of them are grown people with their own opinions, and I always respect healthy discussion. Therefore, so long as anybody can express their opinion in a healthy and constructive manner, I have absolutely no reason to have some sort of negative feelings towards them. That being said, would have been nice if one of those videos would have been far less condescending than it came out to be. All that being said, back to the discussion, and the things that you guys are speaking about, like Alliance were kind of like lock in from the defense, that sounds like an amazing thing. That sounds like something that is relatively simple to do in terms of coding, because I don't think, because there should be kind of like, what I'm trying to say, it sounds to me similar from the point of what we want them to do with masteries, like where we want to be able to kind of like save a preset and then get back to it. So yeah. I kind of suspect to a degree that in terms of Alliance War defenders, it should be relatively similar type of situation where every player basically gets their champion number assigned to some sort of preset, and that would allow, even if somebody places a different defender, just simply kind of like resort the defense how it used to be, and then you can mess about with it, and then you can save the preset as well. So I think as long as that idea gets tossed in about the coding, and I'm not a coder, I'm not a designer, but I'm saying from the principal point of view where effectively you need to write a code that takes a snapshot of something and then activates that snapshot. It sounds extremely similar to the same thing that they should have done with masteries already.
One thing which I just remembered also is when somebody is just by accident, you know how it is. It's like you try to place a defender, and instead of placing the defenders, you click on the field and it shows up. And I have seen it that people they didn't place the fifth defender, and it's just still in their team. They think they're done with it, but the officer just has 4 champions available, even when he sees the 5th champion more or less in the Alliance War defense as in the like overview. So now the officer, if he is not able to reach out to this player because he is limited of the access of the game, will not be able to do anything with this 5th defender. I don't know if you know this one, what I mean.
Yeah, sometimes it's not just the one, sometimes people just forget to drop all of them and stuff like that. And yeah, obviously, if you don't immediately catch up on it, and somebody, let's say you're busy, you're at work, you know, you need to drop your defense, you think you drop your defense and you don't pay attention, knowing that especially if there's no AQ active, you have no reason to check the game up until later on when attack phase starts. It has happened to me like once a couple of years ago, but it's not a frequent issue. I think it would be a nice, neat quality of life change.
Yes.
It's not something we should kind of like stop by too long.
Yes. I will quickly go over the frustration points which I noted. I think most of them are already covered, but one which is like, I think more for the beginner and intermediate players is beginner which are in an alliance, which are not aware of individual impacts of the game and or have different expectations on the individual players. It's a frustration level. On the casual players which are in an alliance, which with set goals and set expectations on themselves, Destiny fight have a higher impact due to related impact for the rest of the alliance. Feeling of letting them down, feeling of not being good enough, frustration potential. There, I think there is something what I addressed for players. I think it should be important that they know what they are capable of and what what their goals should be. It's difficult for newer players if they, like, for example, play in map 4, map 5, and they're not getting through it. They all the time use items, and it's like it's burning them out. I hear it from a lot of like medium tier alliances, and there I think it should be addressed inside the alliances to either this person, which is also dying and stuff like that, should consider changing the alliance. Because they are playing on a too high difficulty for them. And it's not a shame or anything. And a lot of people try to get in a higher difficulty to progress faster. But this can bring a lot of frustration with it. and a lot of people then think KAM is causing this frustration, while in the same moment they are targeting content which is too difficult for them. And there I think it's also a little bit of responsibility of a player to choose the content which is fitting for them.
Okay, so
It's just...
Yeah, sorry, I'm about to say something extremely nasty about it. Not nasty, something that many people will definitely speak against. Before I say that, huge thank you to Sendar, who posted and said defense should be officer chosen. Players get to pick champs that don't get placed. Officers can choose anyone else. Defenders get placed if players are online or not. Need auto place button too. I think this is something KAM can build on at the moment, where everybody kind of like puts their top defenders, and out of those top defenders, I think officers should be able to choose any 5 and kind of like auto place them, perhaps. But that is something that could come. I see it going that way. But again, that would put a lot on officers' back, which is something we try to avoid, I think, to a degree. But it's a decent shot. But I wanted to say something about Alliance War and Alliance War difficulty in general, and that feeling of letting down your players. And that aspect of Alliance War entirely depends on your perception of the game. For instance, for me, when I was deadly serious about Alliance War, that was the most important thing about it. That was the reason why I kept playing the game at that time, because Alliance War was the only game mode that could get my heart racing, because I knew there are consequences. There is not only the aspect of I'm letting 29 people down if I fail, there is also an aspect of I'm pulling 29 people if I solo the boss. Because Alliance War in itself was the one game mode where your error has stakes outside of you having to revive. Right? Die in AQ, obviously so long as you can finish the path, it's okay. If you die in any kind of solo quest, it's okay. If you die in Alliance War, it has consequences, it has stakes. And now, I do not inherently agree. I understand the other point where, yes, it feels crap if you let people down. I have definitely been there. I have been the reason why my alliance has lost the war because I failed the fight. But again, I have been the reason why my alliance has won the war because I managed to solo the boss. What I think the problem with Alliance War currently is that the system the Alliance War is set makes that feeling last for minimum 3 days or 2 days, because the war effectively takes place over 2 days, right? And then only in third day you get to quote unquote redeem yourself if you messed up or whatever. Or, and the worst, if it was like a very significant war, that feeling lasts for the entire season and a month, which is, I think, should be addressed more so than the fact that you might be letting your 29 teammates down. The fact that you're letting them down for next 2 weeks, for instance, they're going to be living through the consequences, is the problem. Because your mistake carries over for an entire season, potentially. And I think that's the slow pace, the slow burn of it is what burns the most, I think.
Yes, and I think there you also addressed like a very really good point, because it's all about your perspective of it, and that's something what I try to also document in my paper, that it's like it is a player's responsibility to choose something what he feels comfortable doing with it. If he sees that this is putting him under too much pressure because he is dying, because he's getting this pressure, then he's playing the wrong game mode. He just should move on to an alliance which is fitting more for his skills. Because what does it help if you're in such an alliance? You honestly, in some situations, you're dragging these people down, even if you don't do it on purpose.
I think there can be a balance, though, right? There can be a balance of the aspect of alliance wars that's where you're pulling your alliance mates up, where like in contrast to the aspect of alliance wars where you're pulling them down, you're letting them down. I think like saying that the people who are having problems with Alliance Wars as a game mode, like fundamental problems with Alliance Wars as a game mode, should maybe like go look for a different alliance. That could be just a band-aid solution at times.
Yeah, I agree. But in general, because I noticed this from a lot of people, because a lot of people are like playing in Alliance Quest and Alliance War, where they regularly die, they get they take all the glory which they get from Alliance Quest and purely invest it in potions instead of rank up material. Then for me the result of it is this alliance is playing the wrong game mode, because it should not cost all your glory to just go through it. The glory should be an additional reward. If that's already the cost, if it's just covering the cost, you're not making a real progress. You would make more progress if you go in a lower alliance, take all the glory, use it for rank up materials, and get faster, higher ranked champions.
Yeah.
And there, for me, that's something what also was addressed in the comments for me on my channel shortly a few moments ago, is the alliance. I'm sorry, it's blinking on the stream very much. I tried to like more or less a tag system where it's like for people who searching for alliance would have a better overview. What's the goal of the certain alliance? Because it's very often you see on the side, okay, they play 5 times map 6, AQ rank 116, but it's not really giving really detailed information about the alliance. With a little bit of a tag system, you would be able to help people find the correct alliance for them, I think.
Yeah, but I feel those goals can also change, right? I think those.
Yes, absolutely.
I think in the ideal world, you want every alliance in the game participating in every game mode, but those game modes are just tailored to those alliances, to their level, to their progression level. So like even a bronze level alliance should be able to get some level of enjoyment out of Alliance Wars in the ideal version of the game, right?
Yes. No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. We want to have some quick closing words for the Alliance War and move on to Alliance Quest, because we're already talking since about
cover
an
some of the
hour.
Alliance Quest stuff too, so.
Yeah. And the thing is, because they are, let's say, I don't want to say similar, but they are similar but still different. They have some overlaps, I would say.
There is quite a lot of overlap. Yes.
I think even at the end of the day, Alliance War is still more fun than Alliance Quest, because Alliance Quest is all just down to prestige and everything.
Yeah, but this is actually a thing which I think is this is just for, let's say, us and players, because for other people Alliance Quest can be quite tricky. And as I said, I know from alliances which use all their glory just for potions and revives to get through the content, but in the same moment their approach to it is not, oh, I'm making an alliance quest or alliance mission which is too difficult for me. Their approach is then, oh, KAM is making it so difficult, so they earning more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is something I think there need also to be a little shift in perspective on let's say like the middle tier players, because they're end game players. If they are on like high competitive difficulties on Alliance War, I understand if they say, okay, that's for KAM to make money, this special nodes and stuff like this. But on lower tiers, I think there should be a shift on finding the correct difficulty for the player.
Well, yeah, and without kind of like mincing about too much, I don't really have too much input on lower tier AQ at all, ever. I'm sorry, I can apologize, but effectively within kind of like first half a year, once I actually did in fact do like map 1, map 2, whatever, And we had this kind of situation where we were able to complete map 2 on days 1 and 2, but day 3 map 2 was already too tricky for us, like, because we were in like small lines. Basically, I immediately left that alliance to a map 5 alliance that was getting tier 4 class catalyst fragments, and I have never done anything less but the hardest map of AQ since. As in, at this point, I cannot remember or advise any person about how to deal with map 5 or 6 because it has been changed 3 times over since I actually played it. My perspective on Alliance Quest in general is like extremely kind of like heavily towards the worst KAM can offer, basically, like as in prestige race and map 7 daily, no questions, no excuse kind of thing.
Yes. The prestige race, I even if it's like one of the biggest points in this, I want to address just a little bit down the line because this I think will be a really huge discussion. And I absolutely don't like it. But in general, I see your point because I more or less have the same situation. Since map 7 is out, I think for 1 or 2 months I just like had where we played map 6, but elsewise we all the time played map 7. And when my old alliance dissolved, I immediately was searching for an alliance which is purely playing map 7, and that's actually the reason why I'm not in a German-speaking alliance anymore, because I'm not aware of any German alliance which is playing purely map 7. But I'm happy where I am.
Right. I think realistically, the reason why there are so few alliances trying map 7, to begin with, the cost associated with it. Because without beating around the bush, unless you grind like a madman and completely ignore Alliance War, because you would have to effectively spend pretty much all your loyalty on Alliance Quest instead of the boosts that are mandatory for Alliance War, realistically it has never been possible to cover the cost well. Or at least to a point where it doesn't heavily affect your own account. So for instance, in NY718, it's just use units. Like, nobody donates loyalty, obviously, because loyalty effectively is pretty much exclusively for Alliance War boosts, and half of the Alliance doesn't grind, so we all just use units, and therefore it immediately has cost associated to it, which is a huge deterrent in my opinion, let alone the difficulty bit of it. Just the desire to try it.
I was lucky at the moment currently because I always had a long-term deal all the time running that I donated the gold and the other people donated my glory. I have 1 million glory because for the difficulty we play in Alliance War, because it's on a lower difficulty, I don't need boost. I run through the map with Domino Trinity without requiring a boost. So I don't have any like spending of it. And for Alliance Quest, we play map 7, and only if I really mess up, then I need to use items on map 7. So I have full glory, my boost storage is full, my potion storage is full, my revive storage is full, because I don't need any of it. But why is it? Because I was organizing it correctly with the paths on map 7, and I chose the right alliance, which is having the focus on Alliance Quest and not on Alliance War. That's why, for me, that's all totally full.
It's still a little crazy, though, with Alliance Quest that we have to pay to play game mode. Like, I understand the economical aspect of it. Like, you do want to have barriers to rewards in most games. Otherwise, the rewards wouldn't be as good. But I feel the fact that we have to pay for it just doesn't seem right. Pay to play game mode.
I'm gonna kind of pile on KAM a bit more. It seemed like a reasonable thing up until like map 5. Once map 6 came out, the donations kind of like went through the roof already, and then it wasn't realistic with like a medium amount of time available for the game to actually cover the cost without paying. But
I remember map 6 first being introduced. Like, I remember we were also exclusively doing map 6 at the time.
Yeah. where I wanted to get, where I think the whole kind of like idea now is getting much more merit of Alliance Quest should be free for all, was when KAM started giving these lower maps for free. As in, how come the map 5 and 4, 3 are free? I can understand maps 1 and 2 to kind of like get people interested in it and get in there to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But nobody who plays map 5, for instance, is new to this game. Nobody who plays map 5 doesn't understand how Alliance Quest works or should need an extra incentive to get in there. So I'm not saying that making map 5 is a bad thing, map 5.3 is a bad thing at all, but it seems extremely bigoted from the point of view that people who play map 5 typically are the people who just can't be asked with map 6 or 7, right? Because a lot of people how climbed this game up, gotten burnout, moved down, half retired, stuff like that.
I think a lot of people who playing map 5 are actually people who are, let's say, a little bit like ex-end game players, which are like, yeah, I just want to play along a little bit, but not so intensively anymore. I think maybe that's a move to get them more into the game again.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, when like map 5 even is free, I definitely can agree to a point when, yeah, it doesn't seem right anymore to how people pay for map 6 and 7.
Yes, no, I agree. I would appreciate it if map 7 would be free. The thing is, it's a little bit, how should I say, because besides the cost of it, it's, let's say, for some alliances, it's a gamble. Because they say, okay, hey, we don't know if we can finish map 7, but we want to try it. But first they need to invest, and if they don't finish it, they more or less, they lost a lot of resources without the proper reward for it. I understand it, but it's also not easy for alliances to say like, hey, we want to try it out once. Maybe we are able to do 1 or 2 days of map 7 at the beginning of the week.
And I think that's a really crappy experience for the alliance you're describing, because they do, like, alliances like this do exist, and they are progressing alliances, right? They're alliances who want to be better at the game, want to progress more in the game, but investing resources and then not being able to finish it, I feel that's a counterproductive game design right there.
Yeah, I agree. One addition I want to make to it, maybe I'm making myself unpopular with some of the higher alliances. Any alliance which has a proper expanded roster, in my opinion, when they play map 6, they can play map 7. It's just a matter of organization. And overall, based on my experience, map 7 takes a lot less time than map 6.
I can't really speak to that because haven't done map 6 in a long time.
Me neither, but I know it from some people who say they need to log in 7 times a day because of the node restrictions, because there is much more nodes than on map 7. Map 7, if you remember back when it was released, I think had around 3 times as much nodes as it has now.
Yeah.
Map 7 was horrible the first week.
Then they reduced the number of links, and then they made the links a lot harder. So it was a give and take there. Yeah. Okay. I may have missed it, but did you guys address prestige situations?
No. I wanted to take that, keep that as a last point on the Alliance Quest topic, because I think that's a overall issue which currently takes overhand.
Yeah. Okay.
KT, I think you can address it really good because you made a video about it in general. And I don't know, have you seen Brian Grant's video about how his perspective as a free-to-play player is in general?
Yeah, I watched pretty much all of the BG's videos about it and stuff. But you mean specifically for Prestige at the moment, right?
Yes.
Well, here is the biggest problem with Prestige, and I'm not gonna mince words. Whereas since the transition to 6-star meta and 6 stars affecting the Prestige has become a thing, Prestige costs immeasurable amount of money. There is just no way to put it. It doesn't cost 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. It doesn't cost $1,000 a month. It costs tens of thousands to actually improve your Prestige currently, to kind of like quote unquote high end or competitive kind of standard. And what I mean by it is simply the fact that for as a version, let's say I'm one of the smallest spenders in my alliance, right? While Prestige was largely bound to highest Prestige 5-star champions, which can be acquired by Arena, which is not that impossible to get and dupe even in Koala Crystals. As in, obviously, it'll cost you money, but let's say if I have $500, it's within reason to assume that I'm going to pull probably the featured 5-star. Not the 6-star, but the 5-star, right? So that cost isn't still astronomical, and so long as 5 stars were the cap of it, you could hold on to your position with either considerable amount of work or relatively reasonable amount of money, especially because 5-star signature stones are not common by any means, but are not that hard or that expensive to purchase as well. But from a position of somebody who has purchased pretty much every single 6-star signature stone offer that has been outside of the last one, which I made a video making fun of, the fact of the matter is, even that doesn't matter. Even if you're not free to play, even if you purchase every single offer that has the item that you're looking for, it doesn't matter. Why? Because Prestige is in 6 stars, and only way to target, dupe, and increase your signature level on the 6-star champions is enormous amount of Koala Crystals. And I come from an alliance where some of the biggest accounts in game. I will not exaggerate that on some of those champions, when people do drop money, they drop in tens of thousands for that to affect their Prestige. Because then they don't go for, I need to pull this champion as a 6-star, because they know it very well that even if they have it as 6-star, or even if they go for the 6-star and dupe him, because KAM isn't really giving any signature stones, they keep opening Koala Crystals till they get that 6-star champion to Sig 100, to Sig 120, to Sig 160, which is impossible without investing tens of thousands. So for instance, in a span of let's say half a year, since first 6-star and 3 champions started to appear, I went from about 8th or somewhere in top 10 in my alliance Prestige to flat down 28th.
Yeah.
And that's within alliance, that's within like half a year, and that's with me still spending several $100 a month on all of the offers that are related to the concern. So
this also can be connected and, let's say, walked back also on the gifting event.
Yes.
With the tier 5 class catalyst, because this was a catalyst which was not available in the game. KAM, I think you was aware of it. I think pretty much around 1 year ago, there was an offer for $100 for, I think, like a 20% class catalyst or so. Or it was in July last year. Not July, I think in August. And I addressed it and say, like, I'm currently not comfortable with the amount of class catalysts which are able to be purchased compared to how much you're able to get in the game without spending. Yeah. I addressed it already like 1 year ago. And
that is my biggest personal gripe with the game right now. There's one thing that I could alter in the game, and the one thing that has drastically shifted in the game is amount of resources that you can earn compared to what you can purchase. And I have multiple times in my videos stated that today, in Marvel Concept Champions, it doesn't matter if you play the game. As in, if I quit my alliance, if I stop doing any new content, if I just open the game for one purpose and one purpose only. It is to buy everything in sight. Nobody who cannot spend comparative amount of money, but does all content plays for the best alliances, will be able to catch me. Because they put more tier 5 class catalysts in offers than they give out in AQ, AW, Acts, Abyss, everywhere else. They have put far more 6-star signature stones in offers that you are able to earn, well, in Abyss, because that's the only place where there are 6-star signature stones. For whatever reason, like Act 6 didn't have any. And
that's
is a
crazy,
problem.
right? Act 6 not having any.
Yeah.
Yes. It was in general, if you remember, actually, the Act 6 rewards, they're already buffed rewards, because the previous one was more or less purely focused on 5-star champions.
So
see that kind of gets into the complicated relationship between how fast the game is going versus how fast the players want the game to go, right? I love the fact that Act 6 rewards got buffed, but I also am scared, and like my fear is kind of backed by the math behind it, that you know, when we go down this route, players are going to expect more and more rewards, more and more like linear progression from Act 7, and then more from Act 8, and then by Act 9 we're going to have, you know, be done with 6 stars. We're going to be moving on, and I'm not sure how much of that the game can take and how fast they can take it.
Okay, but here is also like a relative comparison. It's not that we're getting more or there's a problem with reward increase, which there could be. What I'm trying to point is there has been a shift in the resource availability from a point where when game was at a level of maximum what you can have is max out 4-star or rank 3 5-star.
Yeah.
You had to explore Act 4 in order to acquire your first rank 4 5-star. And for a really long period in time in game, situation was where if you have explored Act 4, you're going to have 1 rank 4 5-star. If you have completed Labyrinth, you're going to have 2. If you have explored Labyrinth, you have 4. If you have purchased all of the offers, you're going to have 5. And obviously then slowly but surely the speed increased. Right?
Yes.
And that was the state score. That was the fact that you couldn't have purchased more of your high rank champions than you could get by completing the content. And similar situation was with Act 5, because you could have 79 rank 4 champions if you had purchased all of the resources, but only way to have first rank 5 5-star was to explore Act 5. Period. There was no offers, no nothing that would even come close to you being able to take champion to rank 5. That's kind of like step in next scale progression. And then for a long time the game was, if you have explored Act 5, you're gonna have 1, and then for instance in sense of rank 5s, it was largely dependent on Alliance War seasons, where majority of them kind of started coming from plus uncollected. And then obviously the more you spent and the better you ranked in Alliance War, which was like the main deciding factor, was how many rank 5s you have, was directly connected to how well you do in Alliance War. But it's still, no matter what everybody says, a content that you have to play and the rewards that you have to earn, not money that you could not or have to spend. Versus currently now we had people who had rank 3 6-stars
way before Act 6.
Way before Act 6 finished.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is my personal grief, my personal problem, that up until this period, this and last year, what I did in game mattered. It was important whether I'm somebody who can finish Act 5 quickly, or how well I play in my alliance, or what alliance I play for. Today, none of that matters on competitive scale. Only thing that matters is how many offers you have purchased and how many cavaliers you have opened.
Yes, and one thing actually with it is, I don't know if you see my spreadsheet at the moment. I made a little bit of comparison. You remember the podcast which Rich the Man had with DNA, I think DNA 3000?
Yeah.
About the increase of strength and health and so on of 6-star champions compared to the costs, and like beside that, it's like you rank a 6-star champion on rank 3 mostly because of prestige currently. Because if you just watch the progression level, if you rank a 5-star champion from rank 2 to rank 3, it's get an increase of attack and health of around 40%. I checked it with a few champions. This is just an example. In the same moment, when you do the same rank up from rank 2 to rank 3 for a 6-star champion, it's just a 20% increase.
Yeah, it's halved.
And that's
why you don't really see the increase in 6-stars, like rank 3 6-stars. I would.
Yeah,
I was like,
okay,
I was
with
finishing.
that, I have kind of like mixed feelings about, because the fact that 6-stars progress slower than 5-stars do is not something I'm in love with, obviously, but it also ensures that 5-stars can be used
Stay
for content
relevant.
longer.
Yeah.
And considering,
I agree.
and I like considering how difficult it is to get the 6-stars, I think that's one of the only saving graces we currently have in the game, is that you are actually able to tackle content war AQ with maxed out 5-stars still. If this increase was more drastic, that would also affect obviously champions that you face in alliance or defense, for instance. Where
Yes,
a
but I
maxed out
think
5-star couldn't
that's-
take down the rank 3 6-star.
I think that's let's say, I don't know how to say it in English. It's like a sword with two sides, because
Yes.
you're slowing down this progression. I think this is something what went wrong in the game design in the past, because they needed to slow down the progression because they offered so much tier 4 tier 5 class catalyst in offers and everything, and notice that so many players suddenly would be able to reach, instead of one rank 3 6-star, suddenly they have a whole team. They can place a whole defense with rank 3 6-stars. If you would have just one, and it would be, let's say, the normal, let's say the previous increase of strength and health, like with the 5-stars, okay, you would face one in the alliance war defense, but not 5. And there it went wrong that it was accessible so fast, because now they needed to design it accordingly, that they are not growing too fast, because otherwise 5-stars, as you said before, would lose their value in the game.
Well, you can approach it from that point of view. I personally think what has gone wrong is how 6-stars got introduced in the game to begin with. Starting from the ways how we can acquire them, and ending with the disparity of, once again, of spending people and non-spending people. Because
6-stars were made. I think Star and I did a
I remember
research
looking at
into this, where we looked at the timelines for 6-stars versus 5-stars being made available to purchase, like in terms of GMCs and in terms of CAVs. And basically for 6-stars, it took about half as long as it took 5-stars for 6-stars to actually end up being available for purchase, which is
I also think there is
crazy.
Additional circumstances, like obviously the half timeline, which you just said now, KAM, 100% spot on. But what accented the problem even more is because at the time when 6-stars were released, you have no way of targeting said 6-stars outside of, again, dozens of thousands in Cavalry Crystal. When 5-stars were coming out, you still had those old featured 5-star hero crystals, because realistically, even right now, today, you don't need 100 6-stars, just like you don't need 100 5-stars. You realistically need 10-20 champions that you want to invest, you want to rank, and will help you progress in the game. Therefore, when we had our control, and like, at least, not that I'm saying that previous featured 5-star hero crystal was perfect, but we had larger amount of control over what our accounts acquire. And when we saw a champion that we thought could benefit us, we had a reasonable chance of acquiring it via these featured crystals. Therefore, most of the kind of, like, let's say, semi-new 5-star rosters had a couple of duped god tier champions. Let's say out of 20 champions, typically almost everybody had a couple of duped good champions people wanted to invest in. Why? Because we had ability to target them. Now when you look at the 6-star rosters, they're extremely sad, because unfortunately the odds and the math are not anymore in your favor. You cannot target them, therefore you don't have anything to rank, and even if you happen to acquire these rank up materials that are available in Abyss, you don't really have much to do with them, and that just breaches the gap further, and that increases the disparity of 6-star situation even further. That not only you will have significantly less 6-stars, you have no way to target, therefore the situation of your account is entirely up to RNG, which statistically speaking will mean that your 6-star roster will look shit.
Yes, that's actually something what I don't know, I don't have it in the document, but something what I addressed in the previous conversation. When 6-stars got released, I was in a really good position in the game. I had we had an alliance which was properly functioning in alliance war. I had saved a lot of 5-star shards and so I had good access to 6-star shards and everything. And at the beginning of the 6-star release, there was a higher, how should I say, a higher chance to get a good champion. The availability of the champions, there was more good champions in there than bad champions. So when the 6-star champions got released at the beginning, I got a lot of good pulls. I got Domino, I now have Corvus and so on. But then, with every new batch released, the meme tier champions got the overhand. So now the chances of getting an absolutely useless champion out of 6-star champion is much higher compared to when they got released. So the people who had an advantage in the game at this point, having now a huge advantage because they had more good 6-stars already back at the time where the chances was better.
Yeah, I agree. So there clearly has to be some intervention when it comes to how 6-star rosters progress in the game, because I sincerely believe that it's going to be one of the downfalls of this game.
Yeah.
So that's, like, in my opinion, like one of the kind of like go-to things that KAM needs to address, and 100% is the way and the speed people acquire 6-stars in this game for free.
Yes, and also a way to increase accessibility. For example, for 6-star stones.
Yeah, of course, that goes without saying.
For free-to-play players, it's like, as I mentioned it in the previous stream also. Brian Grant is like, he is a really invested free-to-play player, and affected a really invested free-to-play player is nowhere near of being able to compete with paid players. Is just wrong. A really invested free-to-play player should have at least the chance to reach the level which paid players can reach to a certain point. Obviously, not the full extent, because paid players having
but principally it should be full extent. The things that paid players should have large advantage, obviously, is the nice, neat, amount of champions. Again, free-to-play players should never have access to 150 6-star champions at this point in the game, for instance. Right? Unrealistic, shouldn't happen. There has to be a reason to spend money on the game to be able to get these new champions quicker or whatever, so on and so forth. But the fact is, again, this is exactly the same issue that I mentioned before, of how we can visibly notice the shift of KAM's priorities when it comes to their marketing and resource availability has come, because Brian Grant was able to maintain his position in game at Act 4. He was able to maintain his position in game at Act 5. Now, later chapters of Act 6, when it comes to 6.4 and anything onwards, he says, I cannot try for Legends run because I don't have rank 3 6-star champions, right? Just gonna realistically gonna make it. At no point from today or a couple of months ago to anywhere in future, no matter how much time he spends in the game, he will ever be able to get into a high-end competitive alliance and kind of like top 10, top 20 IQ or whatever.
Yes, but you see, you can really clearly see the circle there, because you're not able to get in, let's say, the top 10 AQ alliances. You will not get the additional tier 5 CCs.
Well, eventually that would even out. The issue is not tier 5 CCs. Eventually, no matter what pace, again, so long as you can get 5 champions ranked to the max progression level, you quote unquote have a shot. Even if I can get 5 rank 3 6 stars today, and he's gonna take 2 months. The fact that I'm gonna have 9 rank 3 6 stars at the time he has 5 will not matter nearly as much, because the only 5 champions have prestige. So long as he does his rank ups properly, he has the same potential for the same prestige. The problem is the actual champions are locked thereof and the signature stones, because that has always kind of like been the case. If you started later than somebody who already had a roster, statistically, if they continue playing at exactly the same pace as you're playing right now, and whether they spend exactly as you do, you'd never kind of catch up, right? But you could still play in the same alliance, because the prestige is only affected by top 5 champions. So it never mattered that, for instance, right now, I have 54 maxed out 4-star champions, which I was able to get for playing long time at a top endgame level at a certain period in time, because obviously we all have abandoned ranking up those champions. That means some of my teammates who started playing the game later only has 30 maxed out 4-stars, because they didn't need to rank these champions and they didn't have these resources at that time. But the game moves forward, and eventually they were able either to catch up in overall account size or overall prestige or whatever. That in itself, that somebody has some few more champions ranked up and few less, that's not relevant in a longer period of time. What is relevant is the acquisition of these champions and the acquisition of signature stones.
Yes, actually, that's a really good point, because I agree with you. The rank up materials at one point, the AQ rewards will be buffed, and then more people will get access to the tier 5 CCs and everything. But none of that will help to change something on the signature level of the 6 stars.
Yeah, exactly. So again,
yeah, and the whole aspect of catching up, or like the aspect of RNG being so harsh, especially when it comes to 6 stars and not having any way of targeting them, it's an issue that also trickles down. Like, you have players, lower level players, who are just starting to get into the game, and then they end up pulling a 6-star after like months and months of grinding, and then they just completely get shafted. Like, I think the chances of getting shafted are way too high in these, that it basically deters them from wanting to play even more, because like it took them 6 months to come up with their first 6-star. Like, however much longer is it going to take for them to come up with the second one? Like, it feels like they're stuck. And you're right about like Brian, or like other free-to-play players, lower spending players, myself included, being able to keep up until Act 5. Like, I was one of the first players in my alliance who had a rank 5 5-stars, because like I got into Act 5, I completed right away, explored right away. Like, that was my way of catching up. My way of catching up was, got to rank 5 5-star. That's the max rank in the game. I get 5 of these, I'm all set. But when it comes to right now, with the situation we have right now, first of all, like 6 stars were introduced before 5 stars could even get to max rank. So like we always, like, there was this grim realization at the time, even that even if you get to this max rank right now, there's no stopping, there's no catching up forever, or even for like a significant amount of time. So it creates this uneasy feeling, this feeling of uncertainty, this unsettled feeling that as time goes by, you're going to end up having to spend even more. And then like that whole aspect of it just kind of went out of control with 6 stars, I feel, because you're right. Like, people who do catch up, people who do end up having like 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 prestige, right? those people, they are spending significantly more than anybody else in the game can spend on 6 stars on anything, and like good on them, but also at the same time that's not feasible for most players in the game. But the problem is not exclusive to players, to high level players who are trying to compete with that level of spending. Problem also trickles down. It's like it's a vicious cycle in the game, I feel.
Yeah, well, I also feel that what adds to this said problem is because you said like the chance of getting kind of screwed over by RNG is far too high, and one of the major problems in the game.
And it's increasing.
Yeah, and it's increasing. But I agree. Here is a difference. But I think what also has happened relatively recently, because up until this point of 6 stars and 6 stars mattering as much, you had a way to combat the chance, as in like for as long 5 stars were dominant in prestige, you had a way to take control and grind that arena for 3 days, right? Grind your life away, got the champion for prestige. You had a way how to circumvent the RNG. And previously also, for instance, the signature stones weren't like as feeble. It wasn't common, but for 5 stars you were able. Actually, I think in 2019 and 18 you were able to earn more signature stones than you can in 2020 for 5 stars, pretty much. Because there was a time when they were fairly frequent and like whatever. And if you saved them up, I know I did. Like I mean, again, I spent, but I didn't spend nearly as much. But at any given point throughout last 2 years or so, I have had always kind of like a stash where I could take at least 1 or probably 2 champions to SIG 200 at any given time, because I never used my signature stones. They were coming in few and far in between, but if there was a new high prestige champion, let's say Silver Surfer, I could use Awakening Gem on him and SIG 200 him immediately.
Actually, I want to address this too, because I was more or less in the same situation, but then because they added in more of the, how should I say, the 5-star champions, like I don't know who was a 5-star champion, which previously was like one of the old champions, but they added in Doctor Strange, for example. And I was all time hoping for the Scarlet Witch to get in. So I had a Mystic Awakening gem and 100 signature stones in Mystic and 100 general signature stones so I could rank her up. But in the same moment, I had nearly no signature stones in the other classes, but 300 6-stone crystals.
Oh yeah.
But I never opened them, because otherwise I would overflow my Mystic, and I would not have any Mystic champion where I would put in 6 stones. So it was like, why I'm doing that.
Yeah, well, I think the one quick side way to kind of like just put it out there on a shelf and put it out of the way. One of the quick things, if KAM cares about players, they absolutely has to change, is the cap on signature stones. If 5 stars go up to SIG 200, it just seems childish and uncivil to cap us at 100 signature stones. That's only kind of like halfway to maxing out a champion. I think that should...
You can look forward to Sigil 2.0, where you can increase the cap to 250.
But I'm just saying, it literally makes no sense. It makes sense for 4-star signature stones to cap at 100, because that is a max 4-star signature level. 5 stars, not anymore. Or 6 stars.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
It's just childish, silly, annoying, I don't know, out of touch or whatever.
I gotta head out because it's almost lunchtime here. Gotta make sure the family actually eats. But thank you all for having me on.
Thanks. It was really interesting to see your point of views, and also some of your ideas. I really think they're pretty good, especially with the Alliance War. That's really good options. I really like.
Hopefully we'll hear more from KAM about the long-term roadmap. That should be coming out in a week or 2, I assume.
Yes. In general, this document, for everybody who wants to know, I already talked with KAM Cell about it. I will forward it to him. He said he will go through it. he cannot promise to respond to it. That's KAM policies. That's not something he can decide. But he's interested in it and so on.
We'll badger them enough so they respond. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I also want to forward him the recording of the stream, because I think it's helping them also to understand a little bit the frustration and the thought process the players go through.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah,
I'm gonna be heading out.
yeah. Have a good one. Thanks for dropping on by. Yeah, everybody, KAM, link to his podcast is in the description. Yeah. KT, when you have to go, or you have no limit at the moment?
Well, I'd say how about half an hour, something like that, because my girlfriend is patiently waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, we can try to wrap it up in like half an hour. In general, perfect. It's an interesting discussion, but
I know what you mean, and we can always take a part 2.
Yes, that's
maybe, for instance, after the roadmap gets released, we can make a discussion and discussing the things that we like, don't like, would have done different, didn't think of, but are great, or whatever.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you is, like, would you have any ideas on how it could look like if you want to target champions?
Well, what I wanted to say, number one thing that I had been thinking of making a video, they haven't gotten around to for now, and it would be a very simple, superficial, yet effective change, and that is change the featured 5-star hero crystal time from 3 months to 1 month, and cut it down from being 24 champions to being 8 champions a month. And so effectively you'd have 20% chance to land in on one of the last month's features.
But at the same moment, same moment you don't have so much 5-star shards collected, so it's like because one of the reasons why they said they reduced the percentage chance for a champion is because the current accessibility of 5-star shards is so big, and it's like a limitation that not everybody is getting their champion that easy, more or less. I don't like the explanation for it, but that's their
approach. If you don't want to check it from 3 months to a 1 month, you can still do it for every 3 champions. That's for every 6 weeks or whatever. I'm just saying, just lower the time frame, right? And it technically, statistically, is the same kind of like thing, except in this case you have more of a control for like which champions you want to go for. As in, the structure of the crystal doesn't change, the whole idea of what they represent do not change. At the same time, it just increases your chance to target one specific champion. It doesn't increase your chance on getting a featured or anything like that. I understand why they changed it, because we were starting to acquire 5-star shards at a pace where effectively, if you are playing the game seriously, you could more or less get every single champion from them. And they don't want to get to it. And I understand. But it's certainly not the case with 6-stars right now.
Yes. One option which was discussed was like, I don't remember who brought it up. I think it was in one of the chat rooms from the CCP. But this is not something restricted. This is just something like thoughts bouncing around. It's not from KAM, I have to say. It's from other players. Mm-hmm. It's a system which would be like, you open a 5-star crystal, and if you don't like what you get like a reroll option for, let's say, like 1,000 or 2,000 shards, or it's an increasing value. So you don't have to spend another full 10,000 shards to reroll, but you increase the chance of getting a champion you could use. So yeah, that's just a thought which got dropped.
I don't think I think it's effectively kind of elaborate version of Nexus Crystal, for instance. And if we discuss that option, I think much easier and reasonable is just to increase the availability of Nexus Crystals.
Yes, actually, in my
'cause
opinion,
it-
Nexus Crystal, it should be easily accessible.
But also
There should be a
Sweet
Nexus Crystal.
has a good point in my chat over here. He says it really all comes down to the most champions being useless, and I kind of agree.
Yes,
Because
me too.
if there weren't as many horrible champions, your ability to target specific champions wouldn't be as important. Nowhere near as important. As in, like, yeah, if all of the or majority of the champions would have a certain use, and let's say, okay, you have your 5 meme and 5 but incredibly great champions, but everything in between would be much tighter together. Which are not.
Yeah, it doesn't need to even be the best champion, not like a new Corvus or something.
Yeah.
But if you watch like Gamora or somebody or She-Hulk, she's like a champion which was before meme here, and she has the spots where she shines. And a lot of people, I think, including you, like picked her up and played a lot of content with her.
And still
And
do. I rank her down, and I rank her back up, and I still use her for Alliance War and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I wrote one of the topics is like balancing of champions are in progress, but compared to the amount of champions which would require a rework, it's way too low. Reducing the champions to 1 per month of new champions, but add 1 additional rework would speed up the rework process and would make champions much more user friendly.
Okay,
That's
so with that, not that I'm ever gonna get accused for defending Kabam, but that is noble and all, but Kabam is a company that has to make its profit margins. Selling new champions is by far one of the most profitable things Kabam is doing. If you're willing then to sacrifice about 20 to 30% of their profit margin per game, period, that's not something that doesn't happen. Kabam needs to be able still
yes,
to make money.
I agree with you.
So that's period. It's not gonna happen. Okay?
Yes.
You can put it out 1 champion a month if you're not willing to very confidently explain how they're going to make that money up because of X, Y, and Z. It's just not going to happen. Forget about it. Not worth mentioning.
I think you can say, I don't know the exact number, but just a rough guess. You can say 1 new champion is bringing them somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million, I think.
It really depends on which champion, though. But
yes, that's what I mean.
But it's certainly a considerable percent. Like, let's say if they release a content, if they release offers, if they release champions, the champions represent very significant percentage of the total monthly revenue every month.
Yes.
And so just
absolutely
asking them to bypass, that's never going to change. Never going to help.
Yes.
I think here is what Kabam again simply needs to step it up, and what I said in like my kind of suggestion video is the rework of the type that Gamora got. Many champions. Okay, so in serious game modes, there is such a thing as a baseline expected damage for a champion to be viable. Yeah. For instance, let's take a look at newly released Terex, right? Terex might have a decent amount of utilities and bits about him. The fact that he's unable to finish any relatively competitive fight under 100 hits automatically means that he's never going to be used for anything. There is such thing as a baseline damage expectation that champions need to meet in order to ever be used.
Yes.
And that is number one thing that they need to change with all of 2015, 2016, and some of the 2017 champions. Is just to quickly 1 month go over them, increase their stats to bring them in line, which they have clearly showcased that they are aware of when they did champion rebalancing. Yeah, so
yes, and
this champion lies there. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
And no, and also I think with the champions that did it, I really think that's a good approach. For example, Spider-Gwen. Spider-Gwen is a squishy champion, but if you play her right, she's fun to play and she has some great utility. Same goes with Gamora. It's like I will not take Gamora or Spider-Gwen into Act 6, but just for example, for the different game modes now, for the side quest or so, I just picking up these champions because I like their playstyle and everything, and still it's relatively nice damage and so on.
It's always that we have plenty of older champions that are good champions but absolutely destroyed by lack of damage. For instance, Hood would be phenomenal if he hit harder. Cable would be phenomenal.
I'm sorry.
If he's power gain.
Hood, you say it first? You cut out Hood, you say it first?
Yes, Hood would be phenomenal if he had like an on-par damage output. Cable would be phenomenal if he would trigger his power gain maybe a bit more frequently and hit decently. We have Punisher 2099, who has a lot of very potent abilities, and he would be a fantastic champion if he actually had some decent damage output. So that's one of the easiest quick fix things, and that's certainly something that can be accomplished for, 20, 30 champions in a month, and do that for a couple of months in a row. Once you have brought all champions, or majority of the champions, to a relatively acceptable baseline damage, then you can increase the rate you do reworks. And again,
I think I agree with you, but there is one thing which is really difficult, because it's like they only are able to increase it, because as soon as there is a point where they would say like, yeah, okay, but to balance it out and so on, for this champion something would need to be decreased a little bit, people would riot again.
No,
so
why decrease? We're talking about scum. We're talking about worst of the worst. Who would say that something needs to be nerfed in Iron Patriot if all of a sudden Iron Patriot hit instead of for 2,000, he hit for 5,000?
I mean, if they over buff something, let's say it like this. If they over buff a champion, they buff a champion, and suddenly the interaction is just like way too powerful with a certain synergy or whatever.
Well, I don't think there would be a riot if it would be handled in timely manner and openly, because they're saying this is what we're doing to bring these champions in baseline. These champions are subject to change. If we will end up tuning them back down again, you will be able to get your run tickets. Because don't forget, these are the champions nobody would spend money on, because they already have them.
Yeah,
they buff 10 old champions. Agree. Nobody has financial investment in them.
But that's there you address the point, which is also maybe a reason why there is a lack of motivation in doing it.
Oh yeah, certainly, but we're past motivation. Like at this point, there's so much crap going on in community, and everybody's so angry at KAM that if that does not motivate them to pick up the slack that they have neglected in this game for 4+ years, then nothing will. If legitimate answer to you have a crowd of players with torches outside waiting for you to fix the game, and if you will dare to approach the window or balcony and say, I don't feel motivated right now to do so, guess whose house is going to get burned down?
Yeah. True stat. You said you have like around 10 more minutes. So maybe as a last topic, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the mastery system? And what is your opinion on how it should be changed?
This doesn't require 10 minutes. You can pick another last topic. It's quite simple. Masteries haven't been really touched for far too long, far too ineffective, and the fact that I have to pay units to change masteries and do it frequently, because my mastery changes are effectively mandatory by alliance, war, defense placements, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I have to associate a unit cost with it is something that I find wrong. However, I would be willing to live with it. The fact that I have to spend 15 minutes doing so is not.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, the big issue with the masteries are currently is, as you said, it's taking ages to change the settings. And additionally, because of the way the game interacts in the mastery setting, it's very easy to make a mistake, in my opinion. It happened to me more than once that I accidentally put an additional point into a mastery which I didn't want it.
Especially because it's a boring process and you're not exactly focused on it.
Absolutely. And then it's just like, thanks for the sub, Patrick. the problem is then you then need to reset the whole page because you put 1 point wrong. And that's really
are
frustrating.
long overdue. That's a simple. I don't think there's anything else to be discussed on this point. Mastery templates
For me,
are long overdue.
Yeah, for me, my personal choice would be if they want to mastery settings change to cost units, I would approach it like this. I would make the player available 3 slots. In each, they can have a different mastery setup, and changing within these just, let's say, costs 20 units or something like this. And if you want to readjust a new slot, okay, then you have to pay the units and so on, whatever. If that's their goal in it, to limit it with units. But then you just have 3 sets. Switching costs 20 units. You have a fixed value. It's taking 10 seconds, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And
you
with
know
3
what?
pages,
At this point in game, like honestly, I swear to God, at this point in game, it's so overdue that if they were to do it tomorrow exactly the way I want it, I still wouldn't want to say thank you and say fucking finally now go and deal with the actual problems in the game, because this is a thing that's just so stretched out. And it's so simple.
There is even masteries which are like with a question mark to be added later, isn't it? They're still in there.
For like 3 or 4 years now or whatever.
Yeah.
Only masteries that got added was double edge on. Sorry, only masteries that got added in 2017, I think, or 2016.
Yeah, and they changed the mastery
with the
of
bottom 3 of Despair, Deep Wounds, and Assassin. Those are newer ones. The rest of it is as it were, basically. And there are obviously more issues with masteries, as you mentioned. Yeah, I do agree that there should some new ones come. Maybe like variations of Deep Wounds with Incinerate, Shock, Cold Snap, whatever. Like, there are plenty of things I could do.
There is so much things they could do,
But some shakeup is needed. Also, additionally, I think maybe not necessarily with mastery points directly, or at least many mastery points. I think it's well overdue the increase of level cap.
Yeah, you saw Dorky Dave's approach to it with like an more or less limitless, and it's like a milestone system where you get a small reward.
I mean, like,
it's better than nothing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I wouldn't say like limitless, but yeah, at this point, level 60 means nothing anymore. Because there's such huge discrepancy between level 60 players that it has lost its all meaning. Levels in this game represent nothing. Because
and then you get tons, because they have still so much old parts in the game with different crystals.
And that is one of the things that, for instance, personally frustrates me, is that is direct definition of neglect. They neglect so many parts of the game that inevitably get outdated, and they keep adding stuff. There's all of these objective stuff, like for instance daily objectives. They're cool, but did we really need it? I think it would be much better if they revamped the daily or whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, this is something for me. Something what's totally outdated is the daily event system, or the 3 daily event system and so on. Because if you check out the crystals, the lesser solar crystals or the greater solar crystals, like, what the hell?
It's and no, I spoke about it. Like, why do I need premium hero crystal shards? Like, if they are giving me a crystal where at best, as in like the jackpot best case scenario, is a champion that I can still not bring in Act 6, why are they giving me those crystals?
Yeah, and like then you get a lot of 3-star 6 stone, 2-star 6 stones, experience boost. Like, awesome, thank you. That's what I needed.
Yeah, so there is so much to be addressed when it comes to just neglected parts of the game.
For me, one of the, because the last thing, it was also like resources and so on. And for me, gold is currently a big topic for a lot of players in different variations of the game, because the rank up costs are not that low and the accessibility of gold is somehow
However,
limited.
this again another artificially manufactured problem, and why it is so I explained in one of my videos not too long ago as well, because the amount of gold and ISO required to rank up a 6-star champion compared to a 4-star champion is so vastly different, and it has been artificially inflated. As in, somebody sat down, they had a discussion, how much gold and ISO should players be using to upgrade these champions? They said this and this and that amount. In the same conversation, there have to have been a question, how much ISO players will receive by duping 5 or 6-star champion? Same people who said that 6-star should cost 10 times the amount that 4-star costs to rank up also said that duplicating these champions should award players with exactly the same amount of ISO. Now,
yes, and the thing is,
how?
Additionally to it, it's like the rank up cost for a 6-star is so drastically inflated, but in the same moment, the progression of the champion, like on damage and health point, is way reduced.
Yeah, exactly. So that is artificially inflated problem, which there is no other solution realistically outside of KAM, either lowering the cost of 6-star rank ups or increasing the amount of ISO players are acquiring. All of these artificial incursions that are allegedly going to fix the gold issue or whatever else, it's not going to work because the economy in the game is fundamentally broken, largely because of this reason where you get X amount of ISO for duping 4, 5, or 6-star champion, but they require so far more golden ISO.
Yeah, for me, one I think, in my opinion, easy fix, which would be helpful for the gold issue, would be just like an auto sell option. Every item, every ISO which is expiring on my account, every catalyst just should be auto sold.
Auto sell doesn't work because people who are complaining about the lack of ISO don't have stuff expiring.
But in the same moment, for example, I have items. If I open up the lesser crystals and the bigger crystals and stuff like this, there is tons of signature stones and everything which I absolutely don't use. I open all these crystals, get a little bit of gold. The other items go to my stash, and after 15 days, they automatically will be converted to gold. I will not go into my items, go through this process of selling some items, collecting them again, selling them again.
And, it would be neat, but I don't think it solves the problem. But yeah, it would be a nice quality of life change.
But I think a lot of that's the point also from my side, is like there could be a lot of small changes which could, as you said, quality of life changes, which are not, they're maybe not that important and everything, but they would just make the game feel more comfortable, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course, and I agree to that, and that is something we should discuss after we have put out a fire. The way I see is quality of life change is a new window or a new door that looks nice and is neat to look at and is easy to open and is less likely that somebody is going to break in. And it's a nice thing to have, and it's something to work forward, but not when your house is burning. Installing new windows can wait.
Yes.
First, you have the big problems.
What, in your opinion, is like the core fundamental issue? Is it the prestige issue? Is it the resources, the general resource accessibility? Or what's the core issue from your perspective?
Again, I hope this is going to be like, I think, third or fourth time. My core issue for me right now is the simple fact that playing this game doesn't matter. The amount that you buy vastly outweighs the things that you can earn in this game and the relevance of them. And that obviously stems into the prestige issue, that obviously stems in the way we acquire 6-stars, and that obviously stems in the issue of like game economy, resource catalysts, and alliance
Yeah,
first, alliance
ISO gold too, because if
Yeah,
you buy
exactly.
the champions,
So
you get
that
enough
effectively
ISO.
stems into everything, and that's why I've been so aggressively pointing out the fact that Act 4, everybody could keep up. Act 5, everybody could keep up. Act 6, shit's on fire. Why? Because KAM just started selling everything and didn't let us acquire remotely as much.
Yes. I agree. I have to agree on that.
So that is by far the core issue. If KAM wants to sell shiny things, they can sell shiny things, but they cannot sell fundamental game kind of level changing stuff. They cannot sell as much T5CC if they are not willing to put more into the game economy for people to earn. They cannot sell as many Sig Stones if they're not willing to provide them in content. They cannot.
Yes.
Well, you know what I mean.
It's in general, it's like the limit of offers would, or in general what they give out for money, it should be limited. The influence of what people can buy.
Exactly. They can put out as many offers as they want.
But they should be limited to how influential they can be in the game economy for this single player.
Yes.
I heard from people who said like they are playing since 5 years. They got a guy in their alliance who started to play this game beginning of this year, and they have a higher champion rating in everything on their account than the person who played since 5 years.
Yeah, and that's wrong. That's where they have gone wrong. That's why the game is in the state. That's why a Q doesn't matter as much anymore, because who cares what you earn from it if you can buy more? A W doesn't matter as much. Who cares where you place if you can buy more? Doing Act 6 or variants don't matter, because who cares if you can purchase more catalyst, resource, crystals, champions? That is the fundamental problem in the game, because KAM has significantly changed the way they sell this game. When previously the things that they sold were handy, were neat, were nice, but they didn't let me overtake everybody in game progression. As in, like, Grandmaster crystals, for instance, when 5 stars were the peak of the game, right? And when they were like well underway and people had relatively developed 5-star rosters, and I had 55 stars, and I had my prestige sorted, and I had the chance to sort out my prestige because I could grind some 5 stars in arena or whatever. I didn't care if somebody else has 160 or 145 stars. I had the ones that I needed. They could buy all of these new shiny heroes, but it didn't matter in progression of the state. As in, like, my level of ability to be in endgame alliance, or my level of ability to clear the content. It was nice for them. They could have their fun with new champions, new interactions, new abilities, and they get what they paid for, and people bought them. But to me personally, it didn't matter, because I could still hang around with them, play in the same alliances, have similar prestige, clear similar amount of content. Now it's not possible anymore, because they do not let me or anybody else who spends moderately progress nowhere near as fast as they sell the game out.
Yeah, you're just not how should I say, fit for competitive gameplay, let's call it.
Yeah.
Or your wallet is not fit for competitive gameplay.
Nobody's wallet is fit for competitive gameplay if you have a job. If you have a career, a successful career, you might play this game competitively. But if you're a regular human being with work instead of career, company, or business, you're not a competitive player in this game anymore.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a nice wrap up, actually.
Yeah. I think that will do as well. So first and foremost, huge thank you to you, to KAM, to everybody else, and obviously to every single one of you watching and being active in chat. Hugely appreciate you guys continuously showing your support, and you guys are awesome. Now, so is Mash. I hope this actually, maybe to a tiny degree, somehow does benefit the future of game, and somebody in KAM listens to at least part of it. But yeah, thank you guys.
I will forward this to KAM, and also my document. I will obviously adapted based on our conversation we had now. Before I send it to KAM, I will send it out to KT, KAM, and everybody again, and then I will forward the document too. And I agree. I hope it will have an impact. I hope it will help KAM getting a little bit an insight of the player's perspective, because I think a lot of the time they lost the perspective of the players of their game. And yeah, for everybody who is watching our conversation and so on, don't take the game too serious. It's a game, and hopefully we will be able to catch up on the paid players and everything, and we will have a more evenly matched playing field again. I'm really looking forward to that. And also, thanks to KT and KAM already left. Everybody who's watching the recording after it, link to everybody who was participating is in the description, and hope I will catch you next time.